videotape this. Okay, so you and I met like how long ago was that? Like 6 weeks ago or a full month ago?
5 weeks, yeah.
Okay, 5 weeks ago. You did your first and only round a year ago. So
Right.
you and I have been working for a year. You are a recovered alcoholic. Anything else that you abused besides food?
Not really.
Okay, well you
No,
went from alcohol to sugar, essentially,
pretty
right?
much, yeah.
Yeah. Which is it's like they're both, would you say, equally detrimental, except for sugar doesn't create the same cognitive change, different
Right.
cognitive
I think the
change.
sugar thing's a little hard. I wouldn't say I'm recovered on that issue, but I'm working on it.
Well, we are. That's why we're working together. Okay. So, last time we met, you had an incredible year and you came in and you'd had, for the first time in a while, some significant stress with your most vulnerable, the people in your life,
Right.
your daughter and your ex-husband. That's pretty significant. Those are very important people that you have to and you want to have relationships with, right? So you had come in and started to say it's the sugar. And not only that, but you were like, I've gained this weight and I really think it's the sugar, right? And I was like, you did not just place blame. Essentially, it took me an hour to be like, oh no, you didn't just blame. Because that's like saying it's not my job it's their fault that I'm fat and I chose to eat sugar because I felt inadequate to handle the environment, right? That's kind of like a nice little snapshot of our last session, right?
Absolutely.
And I said,
Absolutely.
first and foremost, you're judging your body's reaction to your stress and
Right.
inadequacy. So the first thing we got to do is stop judging the body. If you're judging your body, that is actually feeding your desire for a narcotic. Right? If you judge the body, how does it feel when you feel inadequate with your body or feel bad about it? How does that feel, Maria?
Um, well, I don't know, there's a big disconnect, it's just not, it doesn't feel good. I mean, it feels,
Like something has to change.
exactly.
Okay, and that right there, that sense is not necessarily the brain chemistry behind feeling inadequate with your body. That's a very important connection to life that you have. If you feel inadequate with that connection with your body, that's like saying I'm inadequate to live, and it's my body's fault. How do you think that affects your brain chemistry? You're going to seek refuge. You're going to seek a form of you're going to seek a narcotic. Dieting is just as euphoric, and because you're chasing this dream, right? You're chasing this illusion of grandeur with being thin, right?
Right.
And that's a narcotic.
Right.
So would you say that the illusion of being thin and being healthy, or whatever that desire is, would you say that is very powerful?
Absolutely.
Is it as powerful as sugar? It's far
Yeah,
worse.
probably,
It is
probably.
far worse.
Yeah.
Consider the
Yeah.
manipulation in your diet. Consider that.
Right.
How vast, deep, and wide that desire is relative to the quick impulse of sugar. Which one do you think is worse? Now be honest with me. I want you to really think
No,
about it.
I think that's right. I think that inadequacy, definitely.
And then seeking refuge in I'm gonna diet. That's very powerful, right? Consider how much research, planning, money that goes into that. Do you put any research and planning into sugar?
No.
Okay, how about when you were, I want
That's
to,
not, a little bit.
well, it just requires, think of the brain wiring. What does it require? Not very much. It just says go buy it. You have to have money.
Right.
Okay, so I want you to compare alcoholism. When you were in your diseased, in the depths of that, would you say there's a lot of planning involved with alcoholism?
Definitely.
Way more, was there far more planning? Because usually, and I'm going to make an assumption, alcoholics plan. There is a method to that madness. It's not just going for the alcohol. There is a type of alcohol. You know what you need. You kind of know the quantity that you need. You really have an expertise in what you're doing and what you're intending to do and how to hide it, right?
Yeah, that hiding is a huge amount of time. We're trying to, yeah.
Okay, so I want you to make a comparison in terms of that addiction. So there's an addiction to alcoholism, there's addiction to sweets, and there's addiction to dieting. Okay? Which one would you say is the most profound in terms of planning and dedication? Just be honest. I don't really have an idea of what your answer is going to be. So I'm just wondering.
Well, for me, probably the dieting, the body image, probably more so. But that's just because.
Do you think it's because it's really the root disconnect between you and the flesh that you're in?
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is interesting. This is the first time I've ever asked someone this. And you know what? I'm not surprised because the addicts, the true, like, this is a nasty addiction type people who've hard narcotics, hard drugs, and alcohol. It is, when it comes down to the relationship between you and your body, this is the one thing that you give yourself freedom to abuse.
Right.
And it's like saying, it's like really getting down to death. You know, we talk about in recovery, there's this submission, there's this, you're desperate. The moment you go on your knees and admittance, right? And there's this desperation to just say, just tell me what to do. I'll do anything you tell me, right? You're desperate. I'm trying to get you there with your body.
Right.
And that really gets down to like the nitty gritty of some of this brain problems. Okay. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah. And I think that's kind of that's kind of been the shift for me, is that, you know, that's the focus of, you know, tell me what to do, you know, and I mean, I put those, trust me, I hear your voice in the back of my head all the time. It's
all in love, It's all in love, right?
It all is. And you know, for me, it never really was, because I wasn't, you know, grossly obese. It's not like, oh, I need to lose 30. It was really wasn't about the weight. It was about the body image.
That's how it is for everybody. Just so that you know, it is about the image. What you're chasing is that feeling of freedom.
Right.
Freedom from shame, guilt, judgment. Freedom to feel good about your life. That's what you're chasing.
Right, but it didn't. I mean, it doesn't. And you know, really, like you said, the freedom really comes more from the changed eating, really. I mean, it's totally opposite what you think it is.
Correct. Everybody thinks I have to change the food I'm eating and I will feel better about it. It's like saying I'm going to get rid of alcohol and all of a sudden my life is going to, it does improve. There's no doubt about it, but it requires all of this submission and humility and, you know, you have to go through grievance. But now we're dealing with your body. This is the one last thing that you give yourself freedom to abuse in any form, right? And so now we're like, shit, now we're taking away all of your access to get rid of insecurity. I was thinking before this session, and tell me if this is anywhere close to accurate. Were you physically abused or verbally abused in anger? Was there anger when you were raised?
Not so much when I was raised.
How about with your ex-husband?
Well, yeah, my recent ex-husband, definitely.
Is that when you were really in your alcoholism?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a feeling that created a reaction to anger for you. Do you think that did you drink in resentment? Did you drink as a way for you to not be abusive back?
No, I think let me just back up one step. I think, you know, if I go back to my history, because I've done a ton of work.
Yes, that's why I was like, you know this stuff, right? But that's why I'm like, is there?
If I really look back, and I'm not sure actually where it came from, but I think I was a very shame-based person. So if somebody would criticize me, like I was telling, because my young daughter's the same way.
Criticism.
Talking about it. You know, when I first went to work as a lawyer, the first time somebody criticized my work, I was like almost in, it was like that horrible feeling that somebody just hit me and
Yes.
in tears. So it's a real, you know, and I worked on shame a lot.
Yes.
And so
Okay, I guess the question I was asking is the shame. The shame comes from a negative, like, judgment. And I was wondering if there was any anger. There was no anger involved in that. No, like,
I think it was more of just
you're in
I think
trouble. None of that.
I
Okay.
think it more was like my mother was just very detached. There was never, you know, God, I love you, you know, God, you know.
Was your
I was-
mom verbally abused?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm just super. I don't know. I mean, super detached. So there never was those positive affirmations, really about anything. It was just kind of like,
Okay.
you know.
There was no voice. There was no voice to explain your emotions. There was no voice to explain how do you absorb criticism, where's your bearings, how do you absorb it, and then take what you need and let go of what you don't. You just assume whatever you're hearing is accurate and it's the truth.
Right. And so
Okay.
I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And so then when you said my ex-husband, well, I mean, he just basically was verbally abusive. So
Okay. I think this comes from that then. The verbal abuse to you, not only are you taking it, but in any way were you weren't fighting back. And I think maybe that's where this is coming from. Okay, well, this would make sense. The it's very passive aggressive. It's a very passive aggressive move for you to, it's like saying, I'm going to hurt you by killing myself. I'm going to show you through my own self-mutilation that you're an ass. So it's like really passive aggressive. Okay, so this whole, I just got a feeling that this is similar to that with your food. It's almost like saying, screw you all. I'm going to self-destruct and it's your fault and I'm going to make you feel bad about it. This is my vindication. Watch me hurt.
That's probably could very well be, yeah.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, I see the similarities, definitely.
Well, what I'm getting to is the trigger. Obviously, the outcome is a desire to, I'm going to go ahead and feed this. But I'm getting to the trigger of what you're trying to communicate, because there is a form of communication that you're not being vocal about, that you don't know how to voice.
I would say the trigger.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that making any sense for you? Go back to this most current experience with your daughter and your ex. What's going on between them? Anxiety and irritability. Oh, well, you know what? This was a little different. I wonder if your anger came from the husband, the afraid to discuss your feelings with your daughter, something different, because that's not coming in resentment. I think maybe this comes from the ex-husband.
Oh, I'm sure it probably does.
Okay, so you had
in my life that's related. It goes back to that.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, I wonder if that was your weakest link. It wasn't the daughter issue. That was just like, okay, this is like I'm gonna make it worse. But the trigger comes from this
when I feel that I'm not being respected, whether it's coming from my kids.
That's what if
my daughter, one of my daughters.
Okay, that's anger.
It's like, I'm not going to take this crap from you. I'm not going to take it from anybody anymore. So that's it, really.
Thank you. I figured it out. I swear I could feel this. I was thinking, I was like, oh, there is anger in here. And I think that's what it is.
Right. I mean, sometimes my 13-year-old, of course, she lives with her dad. I mean, sometimes I feel like he's living with me when she's with me, you know. And so, and she said to me before, Mom, I'm not Dad, you know. And it's like, yeah, oh, wow.
Okay, because I was going to say, I think you still have that pattern of training in your brain. What you're going to need to do to release this impulse, because we can sit here and say, breathe through the impulse, focus on loving your body. That's only going to go so far, Sunshine. We got to get rid of the impulse. And I could sense that it was coming from anger. And you are still attached to your ex-husband. And in a way you have to be, right? But you're not implementing your wisdom. You're implementing the way you reacted. This is a state of conditioning. Your brain was conditioned in fear of rejection, abandonment, and wanting to stay married to him. And the only way you could feel that you could and could tolerate that shit is to vindicate.
Absolutely.
With the alcoholism, and I'm in pain. Look at me. I'm hurting myself to hurt you. And it's like, right? I really think this connection you have with your ex-husband, I would love for you to, in your mind, go back to this relationship between you and him and make it work. Not in the marriage, but in the relationship you have for him. And I think the only way you're going to be able to do it, obviously we can't change him, but we're going to have to change your approach to his, and you know him well. And this is the great news because you didn't know him. And I want you to reframe your reaction to him in a like, it doesn't affect me way. I don't have to resent this guy. I'm not surprised by his behavior. You know, it's like,
that's what I've been working on. I mean, really,
okay.
I've come a long way on that.
Okay.
He did something like kind of did me, and I like never asked him for a favor. I really don't want anything from him, but you know, I just got him 3 years. For the first time in an email this week, he dropped Sydney off near the airport for me because we were rushed, and I mean, I said thank you. I mean, it's like I wouldn't even say thank you to him.
See, that means he still has power. That means you're still married to the guy. You're still married to him emotionally. He still has something of yours, and you feel like you deserve it back. Okay.
You know, the problem with that is that he, you know, unfortunately, I still have to interact with him a lot, and so he still treats me with the same narcissistic BS. So it's kind of like I can't say, okay, that was done, and now, you know, but I'm getting pretty good at, you know, not reacting. I focus on my reaction when I get something from him or something that I don't, you know, I do. Now I don't always react the right way.
Yeah, that's okay.
I usually can spot that I'm not reacting the right way.
Yeah, well, you sense your emotions. You recognize where they're coming from. You have to have a strategy. That's great. That means you're slowing down between the trigger and the impulse. You're slowing down to observe it. So I think, how would this view take on it? Let's pretend you're teaching your daughter how to deal with narcissists in a way that does not suck her into the drama, right? Because they like to feel important. And part of that importance is to feel like they can manipulate your emotions. If you react to them, you are now their slave.
I know.
So how would you teach your 13-year-old how to absorb a narcissist and then detach yourself and not feed back to it? How you're going to have a very clear sense of yourself. If you don't, part of your identity is going to suck to them. Like it's they're taking something, they're saying something. At this point, the only thing he can really do take your daughter aside, right? Does he try to hurt you through her?
Oh, yeah. He does.
Okay. Does she know that?
Does she know that?
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, Okay, well, if you know that and she knows that, how do you make a strategy which ultimately feeds him just like unconditional love? You don't have to come back in anger. You can say, because he obviously doesn't understand his emotions either, right?
For myself, I've tried to work on, you know, he's a narcissist. That's just who he is. And he almost like he can't help himself.
No, he can't. It's actually not who he is. It's his belief systems around what makes him valuable.
Right. That's just, he can't see it any differently.
Okay, do you think that maybe having this conversation with your daughter would be really important for her to detach herself from his manipulation?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure she sees herself manipulated yet. I mean, I think as she grows up, you know, I watch this with my other daughter, but because I think my other ex was had narcissistic behaviors too. But I think as she tries to, you know, create her own individual, I'm not sure she sees it somewhat. She just sees it as us not getting along, and she doesn't really get why.
Okay, all right. I'm just saying,
So
at some point, do you think he's going to start abusing her emotionally, making her feel like she's inadequate? You got to get better. Yeah, manipulation. So I think it would be really important for you. I have a feeling you have a block here. That's why you haven't had this conversation with your daughter. Because to me, on the outside, and everybody who's looking at this is thinking, this is kind of important. She has an idea of what's going on, so she can detach her seriousness to it. Doesn't mean she doesn't love her father. It just means that how do you watch them have fits and not take it serious to where it's like, yeah, I have no problem accommodating to him. He obviously has issues, and I don't want to have to take it serious, but for the moment, I'm going to act and I'm just going to play the part. And I know I'm playing the part, and there's a level of detachment to where it's not taking on her identity. It's not changing her brain conditioning. She can go, wow, there's an issue there that he's struggling with, and I cannot trust his opinion in regards to me.
I think she's got some of that.
Okay.
I think it's just innate almost.
Okay. Well, it's important for you to have that. Now, how can you do that? And I think it sounds like you're working on that, but
I think I do. I think I do. I think 2 years ago I didn't. I think I do. I don't think I'm already there, because I think at points, but it's pretty rare that I can get sucked back in.
Okay. Well, we have to. The only reason why I'm bringing this up is because I think you got sucked in, and that's where this behavior came back. Because that's the condition you conditioned over years, right? You get that feeling, you get sucked into that shit, and then you're going to self-mutilate. Right?
Yeah, I think that's... I really feel pretty detached from him. But I know I'm not in certain ways, but I don't really get...
I'm talking about not all the time. I'm talking about that specific situation.
Right.
Because I don't want to say you're always there, because you really have found a way to be cohesive with him. I'm talking about the moment. And I guess let's ask the question. Do you feel that from this moment forward that you're not going to ever get sucked in again?
No. But like a month ago when we met, that was nothing to do with him. That was Allie's dad. So, but it was the same situation because...
The conditioning.
It was a similar situation.
Okay, so that it's the situation, it's not the dad. It's not the person. This is a really good eye-opener for you, too.
But in that situation, ultimately, I was really able to detect from him and actually from my daughter, too. I got pushed a little bit to the limit, and then because with a kid, it's harder to just...
Yeah, but your outlet was to eat too. So you did work. It did work under the environment of a Band-Aid.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know. It's okay to say, yeah, you know what, I did struggle with that.
With myself, to me, it's kind of like, oh my God, I'm so stressed. Okay, this will feel good. It's just that instantaneous, this will feel good kind of thing. Okay. Now, maybe it's the same thing. I don't know.
Well, it is the same thing. You're seeking refuge.
Yeah, right.
And there's a burden, there's a sense of burden under what was going on. I'm taking this on. Was there any sense of resentment? Yeah, all of that comes from I'm eating to validate. I'm eating to reward myself, but in essence, what's backing that reward system is resentment, feeling like you're being used, or there's an anger component to it.
Absolutely.
Okay, that I think is why I bring this up. It's like, why are we rehashing what we did last time? But I felt like with our last conversation, I don't know if we necessarily really opened it up and looked at this little piece that's still left for you. Obviously, there is the side of you really need to detach and recognize that if you abuse, it's going to harm this one life source that you truly have, right?
But I did make that connection from what you said to me as far as love, your body and all that. I think over the last month I did make that connection, whether it came from that issue with my daughter or other things, where it's like, this is what's going on in my life, and how is it connected to me with how I'm feeling about myself and what I'm doing to myself. And I think I did make that connection. What happened is you allowed your body to stay the way it is. You didn't use it in any way. And would you say it forced you to really take things lighter? Okay, so then it did reconcile. Meaning, if it were to happen again, would you be well, you wouldn't be so taking things on so intensely, right? That's where you got sucked in. And the other thing is, so you wouldn't have committed based on their emotion. Right.
Because I think that's the other thing. You're listening to their emotion and then you're taking it on. So.
Well, I think the connection is whatever it is, whoever it is on the outside, But I think the connection is, which I kind of already knew in my head, it comes back to me. And so, what's going on inside of me.
Yes, and the seriousness that you take them. Remember how I said there's a level of detachment with the people that you love, to where their emotions are theirs, and it's not your job to then provide what they think they need to feel better. That's codependency, right?
Right.
Is that the lesson you learned through this?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's what I would. That with your daughter, she's going to have a level of separation from his demanding emotions and how she takes them serious. Because if she takes them serious, then she becomes you in that relationship, right? So what you're now doing is saying, okay, that's kind of what happened in this environment. I went back to that pattern of they have this emotion. I'm going to provide what they feel they need. You never question that their emotions are coming from something not quite on straight, right? They're not feeling well. They're not adjusting well. Their perspective is a little skewed. They take their emotions serious. You then become the savior in that relationship. And in the meantime, you're taking on roles that really you shouldn't. They should, right? And your outlet then to feel rewarded or to numb all of the why am I doing all this is a narcotic.
Right.
So the solution here, not only is it to say, you know what, I'm not going to take on a narcotic again. Once you do that, now you have to look at how are you absorbing their stress. I do that with you. I do that with everybody. They come in and they have all these emotions, and I don't trust them at all because their emotions are based on their perspective, which more than anything is skewed, right?
Right.
If I believed every emotion they said, oh my God, I'm going for a ride.
Right. Oh yeah. No,
right?
Which is good. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important, oh my gosh, these are life-changing lessons.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Do you feel like maybe that's why it's working? And that's the thing. That's when I said there is a part where you have to shut all doors to enablers. And one of your enablers